Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this week I'm delighted to be joined by Andy BOLLEN. Andy BOLLEN, welcome to Barras Art and Design. We're in the heart of the Barras, and I normally say, you know, people that are in here with a musical kind of interest, tell me about your memories of the Barrowlands, both as a spectator and potentially even on the stage. What's your memories?
Well, sadly, I was in bands for quite a while, as you know. I was in a lot of bands. But I never quite made it to the Barras. I was backstage a lot, but I never really made it to the on stage. But Kill and Joke were probably my favourite memory. Me, Matt Leslie, a couple of Gregor Dick, a lot of the guys from Airdrie, punk bands and that Reaction, they were all there. It was mental. It was the loudest thing I've ever had somebody punching the... Not that, but not straight in, a minute in, we're talking about violence. But there's like a solar plexus gets hot with the bass drum.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was like a religious ceremony. It was just incredible. And they haven't really changed much.
You know, when
most of them are dead now.
Yeah, that's true enough. And now you mentioned Airdrie there, right?
Yeah, Airdrie.
I want to talk about Airdrie. I'm a country bumpkin from Dunfermline, so I'm learning constantly about the dynamics.
It's always posh Dunfermline.
Do you think?
Oh,
There's a lot.
I met Lindsay McDonald. Remember the wee runner, Lindsay McDonald?
Yeah.
I met her in the park, a nice park. That's
Beautiful park. Yeah, beautiful park, and
She was
right in the
lovely.
centre of Dunfermline.
Uh-huh.
Dunfermline needs a nightlife. It needs a night economy. It needs a venue and that kind of stuff, and a football team. And the minute it gets that, it'll be fine, because it breathes life into the
It's a lovely
town.
city. I always imagined it. I don't know if it was when I grew up, but I always imagined it to be quite posh.
Well,
Kirkcaldy was the smelly one.
Kirkcaldy, aye. Kirkcaldy,
Look at
birthplace of Ollie Buck and Jockey Wilson.
So it is, huh?
Dunfermline, honestly, I say this often to my missus, you take things for granted, but it's actually really bonny. It's
nice.
a bonny
It's lovely.
place.
Aye.
Nice architecture.
I've only been a car driving it really quickly. What was the name of the venue in it?
There was a Joker's, that became a Celtic pub. But
place.
you've got
It was
the
in-
ballroom,
Oh, I'm smaller than that. It would be...
PJ Malloy's,
Yes,
that's the
PJ
place.
Malloy's.
That's the place
That's
to
what
be now. Back in my day,
Is that not around then?
it's actually transformed. It's now a proper music venue.
That was a kind of a King Tut sort of venue, wasn't it?
Aye, it's done really well. It used to just be a boozer. You would go for a decent pint of Guinness, but it's done really well. And they've got, for me, two people that run the place that are always just ahead of the curve.
So that's what you need.
Aye.
Any business needs
And they
it.
love music. You can tell just by
It's the
speaking.
same with the publishers and the books and the music people. All the guys, they know. In fact, the thing today, we're mainly talking about the Oasis. Al McGee was like that. Because I'd still, we'll talk about it later, I'm sure, but there's a point of that night when I was there, we maybe should talk about that or introduce it more. I'll shut up now. We'll let you go into things.
No, the good thing about that, interestingly enough, is we're sitting here on a Monday bank holiday. And, you know, going back through your book,
This could be the night.
it would be.
It would be.
And the anniversary of that, the 32nd anniversary, will be tomorrow night as this goes out. This goes out on Friday, so it'll be the 31st of May.
Man.
2025. And it is an astonishing story. What I loved about this, because we'll jump back and forward, you could have written this book and said, you know, I seen Oasis on stage and I knew straight away and they were going to...
Could have
You didn't
supplied
see that, did you? You
the
just thought-
bestseller.
A bit samey, didn't you?
I thought they were okay. I thought they were average. In fact, I felt a wee bit sorry for them. They reminded me of bands like the Stone Roses and everybody at the time, it would be like maybe Teenage Fan Club, 91 to about 94, Stone Roses, bands like that, Primal Scream. They just seemed a wee bit like 18 months behind it. And I felt, I wasn't mocking them because everyone was in a band at the time and everybody, you're standing watching them. You're thinking, I felt sorry for them. And they looked like, and I think it's been subsequently, it's been brought up quite a lot of times, the singer looked the part, but the rest of them just looked like builders who would run into a burning building and save your life. You wouldn't start a fight with them.
Yeah.
And I always say to people as well, maybe I'm over-egging this question, but whenever I was watching them, it was hard to... Al McGee was bumping me all the time. And he had a double Jack Daniels and coat, because I had my leather jacket, my biker's jacket on, of course, in 1983. And he kept on bumping into me, I'm sorry, being apologetic. He was quite tall, I didn't lose as tall as that, but he was standing beside us, him and his sister Susan, Eugene Kelly, me, and that was it. And then a couple of, I think it was two people, I'm sure there was two of them. A lot of people have just said it was caught on camera by a Japanese student, but they were friends of 18 Wheeler, and they get the wee bit, and I remember, imagine these souls coming all the way from Japan to see this. And they were on for ages as well. And their songs were really long, and they were really loud, and they had their own sound man, and that's unusual at that level, at the time, at that level. But McKay was going mental with
Yeah.
and going and getting really excited. And his sister said, I heard his sister saying to him, yeah, you know, if you think that, sign him. He was annoying her that much. He was kind of basically saying, you know, just if you like that much, just sign him. Stop jumping about and all that. Because it was happening, it's dead quiet. If someone was dead quiet, it's dead embarrassed, it's dead noticeable.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I stayed as well. It would be too noticeable for it. But they were okay. The first couple of songs were okay. They played Rock and Roll Star, I remember that, because I thought they were being ironic. Because they didn't look like Rock and Roll Stars. However, to go back about you talking about being ahead of the curve, thanks for that was good what you did there. McGee was thinking about the way he looked, and he predicted it, 'cause the next fashion was going to be sort of the hooligan, the casual, coming from the street, that kind of a look. I don't mean that in a bad way, the hooligan, but that thing, and being on, you know, football shows was just as a big a deal as Top of the Pops and everything.
Well, the football culture, the terrace culture, and there's Liam standing with an Adidas tracky top on to play their first gig outside of Manchester, it would have been.
And it was my friends that brought them up, invited them up.
I love this story, right?
And it's in the book, and I'm so
incredible.
glad, because I've known Debbie for a while, and like, she kept on promising to write a wee bit for me,
Right.
and I said, you need to do a bit. I'd just done a bit. Derek from Boyfriend, who's my pal, who put us in the guest list. Me and Ross, my bass player in the band, that was in. That band was called Boomerang. After Captain America, I formed this band called Boomerang. We did quite well. We played King Tut's all the time. We played a lot of shows. But at this point, we're thinking, right, what are we going to do? And I was starting to sort of do a wee bit of writing of them. But whenever we were in the middle of it all, when we were watching it all, you're thinking, this isn't happening. This isn't happening for them. There's no way this can happen. And then it slowly did happen. I couldn't believe how good they were. And see, like a year, 2 years later, when you saw them, and I was willing them to succeed. I wasn't jealous about it. I was hoping that they would, you know, I was just hoping that they would do something. I felt almost like a big brother watching his wee brother playing football or in a band or something, you know.
See, standing there that night, and I'll talk about this because I've often wondered, because folklore, you know, it creates
People make it up.
a myth, and I was there, and so you reckon there's about 14 in the place that night?
I counted
Beyond,
I actually counted them.
yeah, staff and
In my
that.
head, I've counted them. In my dreams, I've counted them. Actually, in the book, I'm able to, Paul, the promoter guy that we know, I used to my ages as well. He's a big promoter now, and he was able to get access, and there were 69 people there in the whole night to see the whole show, and most of them were downstairs.
Yep.
Most of them were down in the bar. People who don't know, King Tut's a big bar, a wee venue upstairs, crack venue, famous venue. But you go upstairs, you go into it, and I would say that was me being kind. And most of them were all guys that were all tired. They'd been on it all day from about 2 or 3 o'clock down the stairs, causing no end of grief. But it was very interesting and amazing how it all all sort of fell into place. I just couldn't see it, and I always felt like I know music, you know that. No way. I mean, I would defy. I think there's actually a chapter in the book. I know there's a chapter in the book about A&R, a lost art of A&R or something I call it, and it's just all about that and how. But I think he was there that's what you asked me. I knew if I talk rubbish enough, I come back to it. He was there in a different mindset. He was there almost like an old school music and shaker, you know, an impresario, and he recognised something. And all Oasis had to do was have like 1 or 2 decent songs, something to front up and something that could go out and get sold. And he knew that his face could sort of. I think that was the vibe. That's what's come out subsequently. He said that a few times now.
We were honoured and privileged to have Alan McGee in here, this very venue, for a Q&A a couple of years ago. And I spoke to him about that night. And obviously there's been loads of different versions, and I read his book, Creation Stories, I think it was called.
He's great fun now. He's sober. He's really funny.
Counts his steps and everything.
He's really he's fit. He looks really good.
Do you think you can undo the damage? Is that what a lot of people do once they get to a certain age, to start playing golf like Alice Cooper?
I don't know. I think there's something to be said for screwing the knot while you're in the middle of it all. And that's what Noel's done. Or Noel had done. You know, and that's what is really important during the book. That I mean, I know the Verve had a song called "The Drugs Don't Work," but look at Oasis. The first album was just. One thing that I would go back to in that night, it always sticks in my head, and it's maybe it's just a drummer thing, but I always thought the drummer suited the sound of the band, and it was like a wall of sound, and it was just garage rock, and I thought he was really good. over the next album, you could see it kind of going backwards, and maybe whereas everybody improved, he maybe stayed at the same level. And I don't think him and Noel just didn't ever got on from the start. And I always felt a bit sorry for him, but on that night, he wasn't fancy, but he was really. He didn't have to look at him. You know, a good drummer, they always say, you don't know it's a good drummer. He was on it. He was doing the job he was supposed to do. And I think the second album isn't as good with the drums. I know he was a better drummer, and the songs are more accomplished, but it's Noel's band, and Noel wants it to go this way. And if that's the direction he wants to go in, it's his band. Just to be fine.
There's an immediacy to Oasis. What I love about that night, though, you being a drummer, and you're obviously pinpointing the performance of Tony McCarroll that night, the drum kit. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, that would have been the drum kit of Boyfriend, who were headlining the gig.
It was Derek's, and then as soon as they got a record deal with Creation, they never get signed to Creation. It always annoys me. There was a couple of paper things that I've been doing, and people kind of just sort of, even in the rumour mill, this will sum it up, going from A to B, they get it wrong. They never get signed. King Tut's, they get signed, it was September, October, later in the year. And they get signed as more or less. Sony were taking it took ages to sort it out with Sony. But Tony, what we talk about Tony again? We'll talk about the drums and the music.
That drum kit, I mean, that could end up in a museum.
Dell's, well, I know.
It'll be lying in a shed.
It's not Motherwell, he's moved to Motherwell, it's posh now. He's moved away. But the drums, but it was the cymbals and all the cymbals as well. Whenever he got the deal, the cymbals, the snare drum, the whole kit, everything. And it was just because of the way it sounded that night. But I really loved the I know they get a bad rep, even when they were making it, they always were a Marmite band.
Yeah.
People either loved them or just didn't get it. Even when they were really mainstream and you know, there was just always that thing about them. And I think it was because because they were like football casuals, they were football fans. But it was, you think of all the big mad countries in the world that are into their football, like Brazil and Argentina, Italy, Spain, you know, across Europe, people love them. And they're still, all their shows are all like really, really passionate and that sort of Latin thing, maybe. But Debbie was brilliant as well. It was one of the things we talked about. Debbie was brilliant at talking about that time and that night. And it was just, she was, I don't know if you're going to discuss this later. I'll shut up if you want about the Debbie story. The Debbie story is fantastic. About she was just, they were sharing a wee place like this. It was called the Boardwalk in Manchester. And in that environment, there was just like a rehearsal place downstairs, like a room, and then upstairs was the venue. They was quite expensive, so they shared it. And it was Liam's idea, and they were in there rehearsing all the time. And Liam was at the Palace with Debbie. He was good pals with and all that. And it all comes out. A great story from her, a great interview right at the very end of the book, and it's really saved the book. It's brought the book up another level, and it was just what really happened. And I won't waste it for anyone that doesn't buy it, but it's one for the dreamers. It's genuinely, you've no idea how. I know you've read it. I'm not sure if we should talk about it, but it's just really, really special. It just shows you how if you're prepared and if you're an artist and you're in the right place at the right time, anything can happen. Don't be afraid to dream. All the crap Hollywood cliches you can think of.
So true though, and it's so true. I remember.
100%.
We'll all have examples of it, but I do remember. You know, even at school, you're basically told not to dream. Do something that's a guaranteed earner and all this stuff.
Earlier about mine and stuff.
You know, Aye. But again, going back to the working class roots, exactly. Aye, and your dad. Exactly. When you talk about this, and I love this because I had years ago the chance to interview Bonehead. This was after he had left Oasis, and I met him in Bannockburn, of all places, in a wee boozer. And I said to him,
"Well, Scotland v Ireland, it would have been."
Was that the?
Oh, totally, 100%. There's a cracking quote in the book about them being more Irish than you two.
Yeah, this is it. I said to him,
and the Smiths as well are more Irish.
The Smiths
and Oasis.
And Oasis. I mean, their parents were all Irish.
Well, I go into all that in the book as well.
It's a great chapter.
Aye, it's really good because I love social history.
It's so important, isn't it?
It's really important. I mean, Engels is in it, not the midfielder for Celtic. I know,
the German philosopher.
Yes,
yes,
the Jamie.
But so the Irishness of that band, and I think it's pivotal.
You know, well, that's one of the things I'm not sure if I kept in with Debbie, and she come up with a cracking line about it, and I said to her, He wrote Noel wrote songs that you could imagine hearing in a wee bar in the middle of nowhere in Ireland, in a wee pub. One of the wee sort of a TV crew there, you know, just nobody else. One of those wee sort of touristy pubs you would see, sitting, and he could be playing Live Forever, and then you could see that sort. He could write a song like that as a folk song. You'll know about this as a musician on it. You write it as a folk song, and then it can just go right through, cut right through to this level that you've no idea, and hit the marks, all the important sort of feelings, just all the guys and all the women in the street, just everybody together, just these collective anthems that just sort of stadium. I mean, I think I always think it's a bit. I hate using like stadium anthem-y things because it's not. I think it's something more important than that. I think it's something just the same as Killing Joke in the bar is. It's just this sort of. It's just it's your conscience and your soul and everything. You know, it's all that sort of. Anyway, so they were just knows sort of songwriting. But he knew how to flight. He knew the songs to pick and what to do. But that song was, I couldn't believe it. That song was already written. Yeah, I saw them. Yeah. He wrote it in '91. Bonehead. Sorry, I've got a good Bonehead story. But carry on what you were going to say about the interview.
I spoke to him about the bands that came out of Manchester.
Now you noticed that?
Well,
sorry.
That's good.
Sorry.
And the Irish, heritage, people like Manny out of the Stone Roses. It was Johnny Marr and the Smiths, and Morrissey, of course, the Oasis, and he was talking about how they all came to be artists, basically. And it was the storytelling and the literature and the song and the community aspect of it. And then that working class one.
Irish club.
Yeah.
The Irish club as well.
Yeah. And his old fella used to DJ there. Play old Irish rebel tunes and folk tunes.
The guitar behind the chair whenever he was made stay in because he'd been a bad boy at school and all.
Yeah. And the upbringing of these guys, I mean, he had a stammer, didn't he, when he was a kid? Interesting enough, the first ever guest on A Celtic State of Mind was Paul Gallagher.
Wow, he's
first ever guest. Aye. So, and we've nicked their logo as well, as you can see there. We've nicked their logo. But Brian Cannon from Microdot said that was all right. So we've always had that love for Oasis.
Wee link, you know.
There's always been that wee link. And when I speak to people in bands, I talk about the artistic nature of people who come from a certain background. And I do sometimes think it's poverty plays a part in that as well.
That's
escapism.
We'll see when you're writing stuff. I know I don't want to get all writery and all that, but I've talked enough about being a rubbish drummer. But one of the things you need to do, even when you were like writing essays in high school, remember when you had to have a plan. Maybe we plan at the top, like your beginning, middle, and end and all that. But whenever you're writing stuff, you still have to do things like that. You still have to pare it down every day when you write something. You come up with something, come up with an interview, you come up with an angle. You've got to say, pare this down. When you pare this down, you've got to pare it down to a line, and it's about 5 guys from a house estate, the empty dream, and coming out of that. And people sometimes get snobby about that. Maybe they're just insecure. They don't like the threat of it. But I think that's another thing that McGee saw. One thing I would admit that I did see, I was kind of between that and these pals. I could see other pals. I could see that there was an edge to them, and I kind of liked that. I liked it. It reminded me of guys I knew.
Yeah,
it reminded me of people I grew up with. I was played football with, or hung out with. I was in bands with. It just reminded me that energy and that edge, that wee bit of devilment in them. And I mean, the music wasn't. I didn't think at that point was any good, but the intent, I could maybe. When I get older and I look back, I can see I can maybe see what McGee saw them. So I definitely could see the good looking front man and all that, and fronting the next sort of big fashion thing that was coming up. But just the music. But when there's a bit in it where I'm well in the morning and I hear Columbia it was on Radio 1, and I thought, oh, thank God. I thought they were going to F it up. You know, I thought they were really. I genuinely didn't think they were ready.
Yeah.
And then that come on, I thought, oh, thank God they've done it. They've got it. That's good. It's a wee bit. I was a bit more ravey and dancey, that song, remember? But it was on all the time, and I thought, no, there was a wee loop in it that reminded. There was just like a brilliant song, right? And I thought that's really good. And then I saw him at Tina Park, and I thought, oh,
is that the '94
the first one? The first one. It was almost about we're awfully their dates, and 13 or 14 months late. But it was that quick, right? And by that time they had recorded. They'd recorded definitely maybe, which was another nightmare for them all. But that happened, and that came out. I know we were going next in '94. I just clocked that. Anyway, so the idea of this band playing the way they did, I was nearly in tears. And everybody, there was one point, there was one point where Noel hits his foot down the pedal, and everybody, he just hit this note and it just seemed to go in front of us. They just seemed to, you knew they were going to make it, and it was going to be big, and it was going to be fun. And I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. He just hit the foot down, and it just went, and everybody that was there looked at each other. We're all like that. I'm standing in the middle of an A&R, I'm standing in the middle of an A&R, man, thinking, right, prove me wrong, and it did. And I was like,
brilliant.
Honestly, it was just incredible, an incredible moment. And after that, I thought, right, on you go. I knew it was going to happen. It was just, and then about 3 months after I had got the deal with Polygon with BOLLEN, I read something, and Al McGee said he was in therapy, or he hadn't been well or been out or something.
Yeah.
Not therapy, was it? He was in rehab again. And I wasn't in rehab, whatever it was, it would have been rehab, because it was 94. And he sneaked out. He wasn't supposed to be going anywhere, and he sneaked out and up to his dad's up to Scotland, and sneaked in to the park. Nobody saw him, and he saw it as well. And I thought, see, I wasn't.
See, the thing with Alan McGee, when you're standing next to him in King Tut's in '93, right? He's obviously he's known. He's wearing red loafers, for God's sake, so he's got to get noticed, right?
Aye.
But you're talking Primal Screen, My Bloody Valentine, Teenage Fan Club.
There was guitar music. They sounded too guitar-y. It didn't sound like a dance. There was no dance element to it.
Did you think it was his last throw of the dice in many ways? Because Creation were kind of
You didn't know this. We didn't know this at the time.
Yeah.
No, we didn't. For us, I mean, Debbie, Sister Lovers, the band that invited them up, I think a good time to that story. They encouraged them to come up anyway. And there was a big, because they come up and nobody told King Tut's about it. But whenever they were playing on stage, I would say that Sister Lovers were probably the more Creation type band. They were more like the Pastels or something, you know, the more that indie sensibility about them and everything. But the idea of them being on a label at Creation was even a bit far-flung for me. But I didn't know about the Sony thing. I don't think anyone really did. But we were all into sort of, we weren't into Financial Times. It would be NME. We wouldn't be worried about that. But at the time, well, it makes sense now when you look at it, because they were into Hawk to Sony for millions and millions. I think it was 49% they got. And it took ages to agree, because the American side that Creation used, the label that they used out there, were not returning. They weren't doing very well. And Sony didn't want to release so they had to do a deal. And they ended up just getting them. But you're right, but it changed everything.
Yeah.
Another moment, you know, just incredible instinct as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it is an instinct that obviously Alan McGee had at that moment. Unfortunately for him, like you say, when they were on that trajectory, he had to take a step away on a personal level, and probably didn't enjoy it because of the excesses.
I think he made up for it before '93. Right?
Yeah.
Primal Scream and everything.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm going to go back a wee bit, because
please.
that's a moment where something's bubbling and then it just goes. I mean, for people to understand, you're talking unsigned at King Tut's, 1993, Nebworth, 3 years later. And then there's Rise.
It's about, really.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's incredible.
It is amazing.
And
it's amazing.
I always say this about footballers as well, because obviously, as you'll see from this collection, you write about football, you write about music. If 1 minute you're a youth player and you're bouncing about on a wee contract, and then you're put on a platform where everybody knows your name, everybody wants to speak to you, that must be hard up here to accept that. What I liked, what you did in this book, is you explained how Liam and Noel embraced that. They wanted to be successful, rich.
You didn't give a hoot when you thought about it, and it was all part of the thing, and it wasn't fake. That was the thing. You see a lot of the sort of middle class guys sort of think they're rock and roll and all that. They were rock and roll. I mean, they put. I mean, Al McGee couldn't keep up with them, and all of the. I mean, you should be talking like this about it, but it is a the '90s at that point. It was like that's what it was. You know, people are. You know, they enjoyed themselves, and they went for it. A lot of people went for it. A lot of people were victims. A lot of people fell by the wayside, but they believed in it and they lived it, and it worked for them incredibly at times. But also, by the time you get to the Whiskey A Go Go and these moments where they're playing in front of the top guys in the world, are all there to see them, and they you know, it's calamitous. So I think we could talk about that. It's that bad, but I mean. Happy to go into it's all in the book, the details in the book, but they get their drugs mixed up. One's a not a very good drug, and the other one's a calamitous drug.
Yeah.
Do you know
And they ended up playing the wrong songs.
They
And all
played
that
the wrong
stuff, yeah.
songs, the set list. There's actual footage of it. And see, to be fair to Oasis, when you see the footage of it, I was like, you could, if you were really looking for it, you could tell. But it wasn't as bad. It's not as bad. It's worth watching. Again, I was actually surprised because I thought maybe I need to start again, rewrite that chapter.
What I like though is you tapped into something that I think about a lot, and it's about success and how it affects people, and how maybe going back to
It's
Kurt
not changed
Cobain.
me much.
Well,
DJs,
absolutely, yeah.
all the guys in here laughing at my patter, so it's
No, but you meet people like Gary John Kane, who we both know, who's been
for a
playing
long-
with
for a long
Proclaimers
time.
for 20 odd years, and he's just a normal guy who would have a pint with you and just
well, they
be
keep you down to earth.
absolutely.
Aye, and vice versa.
It didn't sit well with Kurt Cobain's success, did it?
No, no, no.
And the adulation, and whereas these guys, they've embraced it,
I know.
and he seemed uncomfortable with it.
Well, I think
Is
there's a
that
bit
safe
of
to
it.
say?
Yeah, well, 94, they write Live Forever. And every time I hear it, I think Kurt, because it was, I think most people are music at the time did, but it was 100% right. It was just tragic at the end, and no one could. I mean, he wasn't showing up and all that, but he wasn't showing up for shows, or if he was, it was hard to get him. He was just like a real guy with a drug issue. But I mean, if he had just sort of had another break or went another way, but it's just his nature. It's just in his nature, and I think, I don't know, I find it hard to even think about it. I try not to think about that, because it is in the book. It's kind of people who know me know that I was in the drums with Captain America and all that, but I didn't want anybody to know that I was writing stuff down.
Yeah.
By that time I wanted to be a writer, and I had ideas for plays and I was writing down, and he thought this was hilarious. He just thought this was hilarious, that I didn't want anybody to know, because I'm from Airdrie and they rip the mickey at you. I'm trying to be polite. I haven't swore once yet. And but they were really, really, like, on you if you were. And that's the sort of thing Gary John would do. So it's like, put that away and all that. And a lot of the guys, it's good that way. Because, Gary John's played with Marianne Faithfull and Coast to Coast American TV shows and all that, right? I mean, he's ever told you a story about George Clooney?
He hasn't actually.
Well, the next time he's on, ask him about the George Clooney story. And
Gary John's Coatbridge, you're Airdrie.
I'm Airdrie. I'm from Airdrie. I'm actually saying I'm the perfect poster boy for North Lanarkshire, because I was born in Bellshill. I think one of the few the Bellshill scene actually is. I'm not in the Bellshill scene anymore. It's another. So Bellshill, born in Bellshill, born in Bellshill, raised in Airdrie, went to school in Airdrie, moved into Coatbridge about 1998.
Right.
And I've lived there, and I stayed up with Hill for Gary John. He's still at the bottom of the hill. I stayed up at the top of the hill. But I've always known him as a bass player. I was a drummer, and I've always known him because of Celtic, because of music.
Yeah.
He's good taste in music, and all the guys I knew. But I feel part of all. Honestly, I feel definitely as in Coatbridge. I'm fit in both camps, which can be awkward at times, especially around the summertime.
Exactly. Yes. But no, you're right though. But on that night, you're looking at the band Boyfriend. So your pals Derek McKee.
Derek.
You refer to him as Double D.
DD, as in DD Ramone.
Right.
I know,
And
he's a
he's
Ramones fan.
Airdrie.
He's Airdrie, aye.
A member of 18-wheeler
No,
from Airdrie.
That's right. David Keenan, who's a
Yeah.
good author, a very successful author. A real author, as my mother would say. She's no longer here, but I can hear her. He can write a book.
But I love the fact that from working class backgrounds, the artistic people are able to thrive.
They were posh.
Because you get knocked down though, don't you?
Oh, aye. Well, I remember
Boots.
my first ever joke on the TV, and it was called Pulp Video, I think. It was like an updated version of Naked Video, and it was done with Pulp Fiction and all that, and this crying gag on it, and we're all sitting, and my wife, who's now my wife at the time, she's talking to my mum, she's going, Nan, that's my mum's name, is Anne, Nan. It's Andrew's in the tail, like this. She's like, I was like, oh, aye. No, and it was like kind of a done thing where there was no encouragement, there was no, now that it's like everybody thinks their kids playing, like Mozart.
That has changed that actually.
It has. Yeah. Now it's went full circle.
Everybody gets put in a
pedestal. Maybe that's a good thing, but maybe it's too much. And maybe they were, don't forget, where I grew up, and I always say to people that my mum and dad, they were like the end of like the sort of post-war and all that, and were brought up without a lot and all that, and they still instilled that in you, that drive and hunger. But having said that, my dad was a photographer and a journalist before he went into the mines, and and all that. And he was really good at. He would see. Whenever I was wee, I was at high school. I sort of fell through the education. That's why I probably got on well with Gary John, because it's just like he's the same. He's bright in a different way, and we're kind of. I think I sort of fell through the education system only because I loved. If somebody's boring me after about a minute and a half, I just switch off and start thinking about like a clown coming in a unicycle, you know what I mean, and juggling to clown music and all that. And there's I've got this joke in my head about a goldfish and a goldfish bowl, how it goes for therapy and all that. That's what I'm sort of thinking about. She's not now, not in this. This is really important, this one, because I'm a books on the table. So I just have a different brain, and I've always got like 8 plates spinning at one time. And this could be a good bit to copy and paste for sort of another show, but so it's just writing like this is good for me, and writing comedy it's brilliant for. Playing the drums it's brilliant for about 2.5 minutes. Then after that it's just like you start looking the crowd for people you know and all that.
Well, you were even doing that.
I know. I realised that somebody told me that.
Yeah, and you're thinking of other things while you're playing drums.
So it's
on stage with Nirvana.
I was
Dave
Grohl. That was something. That's the hardest thing I've had to concentrate on. I think it was only about 2 minutes, but it was like a Molly's Lips. There was an encore, and I was like, I'm coming on. He's like, come on, and Kurt's like that. He loved it, because Eugene and Kurt were sort of shy with each other because they were like, indie.
Is it a mutual respect thing? Yeah.
Aye, they were. Whereas I'll just talk to Andy, obviously. But I'm joking. I would, and I'll talk to anyone and quite relaxed about. It's funny. I don't. It was the same at school. The headmaster, I would sort of throw water at him and all that.
Yeah, rather than
just have a laugh and be polite, but be nice to people, but not afraid ever to crack a joke in front of people.
But see that thing though with Eugene, so that people understand. So Kurt Cobain was for real, if you want to call it that, authentic, genuine.
Yes.
Into indie music. So he's in America, but he understands.
He's lived in. He's in Olympia, which is a hip place. It's like Dunfermline. It's like he's in a place. It's a kind of a cool, happening place with a cracking radio station. Sorry, I've just butted over you, but it's kind of important for background. And he's not in Seattle or up in Aberdeen anymore. He's in Olympia, and he loves this radio station. And it's the guy from Beat Happening, I think, he's the DJ on it. Anyway, and I think it was Stephen Pastel that over here. It was the old days when you used to sort of send tapes and records and all that over to other things, and they played it. And Kurt heard the Vaseline's over when he was staying at this university town. Probably because it was cheaper to live and there was more record shops. He was into records and loved stuff and all that kind of thing. So that was the reason why there's a connection there. I only know that because I had to ask him, and I managed to get out of him. Not Kurt, Eugene.
Yeah, but then that thing, that's a massively important part of that story.
I know.
And that you end up in a band.
I'm just a sort of, I wouldn't say I'm a bit part in it, I'm quite an important part in it.
Yeah.
But because I was the drummer and everything, and it was really, I was the one that they come in. But it was funny, about a year ago, I had a wee chat with Eugene, and we were getting asked to do an awful lot of things, right? And then I said, I'm getting sick of this. This is a wee bit, I don't want to sound, I was saying earlier to you, but I don't talk to a lot of people. And I genuinely been asked to do about maybe 5 or 6 Nirvana projects, and I've said no to them.
Yeah.
The BBC would be phone up and say, want to come on? And I was like, if you spoke to Eugene, and I knew, I've known that he would have spoke to him first, because I know coming to the drummer, right? They're coming to him first, going to him first. And he's like, mate, you should be back. I'm done. And he said, me too. I said, I was working in town, and I got a phone call when I was getting in. My wife I don't drive either because I've got the attention span of a gnat, right? So, and phone rings, and it's this lovely producer, not for the BBC, it's in Ireland, and we're putting this show together and all that, and it's, we would love that you come on. And I'd already been part of a show, put loads into it, and I got bumped from it, and then I was raging. So from then on, I was like, nah. But I just say no, and it was quite it was the Radio 4, would you call it, the morning show, what you call it? Radio 4. Don't listen to it anymore, it's all Tory. I don't like it anymore.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it, but that show, the producer of that show wanted to come on and talk about, it was like an anniversary of some kind. I'm like, no, what would Kurt do? And he'd say, F off.
Yeah.
So I started doing it. What would Dave Grohl do? Dave, nah. And it's quite liberating saying no to people. So I've done off the ball because they're pals and I like working with them. And I'm doing this one, and I'll speak. I quite like doing bookstore things
Yeah,
and
yeah.
talking, because you look in the eyes of people and you see people and they're nice. Generally, people are nice. And I like saying and things like that and saying hello to people. But I'm not doing anything. That's about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, publishers.
That's
Honestly,
it.
I'm not. I've got it. It's almost like the tip of the day is don't be afraid to say no to people, because they just want an angle on it, and they just want, they should. This is good because you're trying to help, and I know, and I've talked to you for.
We were going for a
clarify.
wonder, weren't we? We were going to do it for a wonder.
I looked at, because I'm a sado. December the 15th it was, and it was, we played against Kilmarnock and we get beat. Remember? And it was a big defeat. It was away 2-1, I think it was. December. I looked at the diary the other night, and that, just to double check. And then about a week later, I was going to do it the next week or the week after, and then I had to go to a funeral. I thought I was going to get out of it. I used all my excuses. I'm usually brilliant at going to things, but I couldn't get out of that one. And so we missed it. And then circumstance gets in the way, and then he's become really big and successful, and forget about the little people. Aye, so
we were going to go for a wonder.
aye, that's right.
Chat about
Aye.
our mutual love of Celtic.
And I think of the Scottish football book.
That one, this book right here.
Aye.
Which I find incredible as well, because Objects is more or less the subject of my last Celtic book, which was the jersey. But there are interesting curio and objects and all that tell a story in themselves. So I love the premise of that. And again, what I would say about this is just read it. Just read the book. Just read the book, the tour diary.
I know.
And you get an insight into.
It was chaotic.
Yeah.
It was really, they were really hard worked. And I think it kind of broke them as well.
It must have done.
I mean, I've never been on tour with a band when they have a hit that smells like teen spirit. And I knew I was in a kind of a unique place because I'd made notes about it.
Mm-hmm.
And this wee guy, there's one bit, I'd maybe write, Kurt tried to buy me boots in Sheffield and all that. And I was reading that back, and I was, about a year ago, I was, for something else I said I would do. Anyway, I was reading it back and I was in tears reading it. Because he genuinely, he was rubbish with Scottish money or British money. He was like, we were in Sheffield and there was these boots, and he saw me picking them up and he fitted and he was trying them on, and hey Andy, I goes, what are you doing here? He was standing beside us. He always liked to sneak away from the sound check. He used to like to be among people and getting out. But seeing I was standing with him, he could just look bang on. He's like, he was going mad at me for not taking the money. I said, nah, man, I've got enough here, but I'm not. I know I don't like it. And then there was a jacket, a leather jacket or something like that. I was like, get a jacket. I'm like, I don't need a jacket. And he was just like that. He was just dead kind and dead humble about things. And he was just like us. You know, it's just, that's what I always say. He was just like us. He wasn't, he was obviously, it wasn't that at the end. He became a millionaire and things all went wrong for him. But at the start, he was a really kind, normal guy and funny. And see, the Captain America t-shirt, he wore that and he opened it up in the NME. And all the day that they did all the stuff, so it was a photo shoot day, like every sort of thing we were on. And that got us through the tour, because we could sort of sell it for a tenner, whatever it would be. And we could stay in a decent hotel, and we could
That's amazing.
eat in the tour. And honestly, it was, and he knew what he was doing. He was always finding the angle. He knew what was going on, and
Really supporting the support band.
he thought it was hilarious. He thought it was hilarious. But this thing, the boots, and he wanted to give me money for the boots. But the other thing I do remember about it, apart from he's kind of he would get angry if he didn't accept things. What is it, you effing Scottish guy? You know, like here. Because a lot of the guys in the tour were the guys that were like the crew and all that, and the stage, the tour manager. So they were all Scottish.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but he was really, and he loved how he swore as well. But I've got really great memories of him, and sometimes I watch things and he's got the same clothes on.
Yeah.
That he had on.
Yeah.
I looked at his cardigan and all that, and he smiled. I can't smile. But he made me go and take. There's a version of the book which is out. It never came out. Sorry, it was just put up online, but it never came out as a book. And it was like a sample thing. A wee publisher that was interested in it, and he put it up, and and I said, "Well, you shouldn't really have done. I've signed a deal with somebody else." But so he kept it up. It was a picture that he made me take. He made me go. He couldn't spend his money. You'll know this if you've read it. He couldn't spend the money. It was a £1 note, and it was Scottish money, and they wouldn't take it in London. Don't get your camera. I was the one. I was a couple who said a camera. The camera was the cheapest wee crappy camera, but I put the photo onto the internet and let everybody get it. And I was going, why didn't you monetize that? You get a date. And I was like, I don't care.
This is
What would Kirk do?
yeah, everybody wants you to monetize everything.
I know.
And I'm just like, for example, that book, right? We took 2,500 pictures for that.
So we like to show people.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of aficionados.
Did you write this one?
There's more photos than words, thankfully. But
No,
everything was taken. So we took pictures of the neck labels.
this is indecent, by the way. Gave it to Andy.
Yeah,
Just looking at
definitely.
somebody's-
So at some point, once I figure out how, every one of the images will go on our website, just so people can browse through them.
Yes, because you think that's
Because I'd like to see that kind of stuff. I am that anorak, if you like. And what I find, we'll move back into the Gallaghers because the success, everybody thinks they want success, but what does it bring? The baggage it brings.
Why?
These guys embraced it, and it almost, well, it broke the band eventually. I mean, there's divorces, there's breakups, there's spites. But at the other end, and a lot of people don't like bands reforming, in a way, and I'm looking at it, and I know there's been all this pricing stuff and all that, and it was very expensive to get
So
tickets.
I'll go into that in a minute.
But these guys came back almost to reclaim the crown, if you
I
like.
think so.
You know? Because they're a working class band, Andy.
I think so. And if you think of the amount of times it nearly happened, and trust me, I know, because I had spent about 10 years updating my book and my pitch, and I think there's whispers that are coming together. But the actual, the moment that it happened, it started to happen. Do you remember whenever Liam was playing the gig in the green thing, or whatever you call it? I'm too old for that. And the thing, just last year, that he played, and all the young people, Transmit,
yeah.
all the, you think I'd know that, wouldn't you? Enough, moving on. That's the rain I can hear, isn't it?
It is.
It is. That's the rain.
Which-
Because that was the name of the band,
You've
right?
taken the words
Thanks
out
for that,
now.
God. Yes.
Brilliant.
So from the moment that they started out, they were always trying to make it and always trying to go there. And I've got a bonehead story. I'll come back to that. What we talk about? We talk about all the young people were singing the songs. See if you watch the stuff, and they reckon Ticketmaster reckon the reason why they broke the internet when that happened was because they were like a generational band where all the kids who sang the songs growing up with their parents so it was like a double whammy. So I think there was an actual tipping point, and they had said yes a few times, and it fell. If you look back, there was a couple of big anniversaries they were going to do it. In fact, I think the tour that Liam did for Definitely Maybe's anniversary was supposed to be that was supposed to be the thing. It makes sense now, and I think I mentioned it in the Definitely Maybe the book that he felt it was like an addition. He said, like, and then, but it was brilliant the way it was done, and I couldn't believe it when it was all falling into place. But of course, this being Oasis, they were the marmite again because all the fans went mental at them. But
So you're
come
getting
the summer,
two generations.
that's what it is. It's
Those
like Fleetwood
who've seen
Mac and Bruce Springsteen, all these killer bands now. But the thing that the experts are looking into, or they discuss, if you look at all the sort of university guys that are saying, or the professors of social media and all that, and all these guys, these things, they're saying it's because they've never, even though they're not together anymore, they're not a working band anymore, it's like you're saying, that they're getting divorced, they've got high profile fallouts, high profile nearly happenings, high profile anniversary reissues, and they were always in the ether, they were always in the public ether, even though they weren't a working band, if you will. So that's the reason, that on top of the concept of them being a generational band, the kids all wanted to go. So it was like, just say they were expecting to sell like 5 million tickets, it was 20 million people. Instead of 4 million people trying to go on at one time, it was 4 times that. It was something ridiculous. It was amazing.
That's incredible.
Because they changed it for America. See, by the time they got to the American tickets, they changed I don't know what I'm talking about, analytics and all that. They did something so that didn't happen to help it. Anyway.
No, but when you're talking, there's a few questions I would like to ask you. The first one being, you seen Alan McGee basically saying, I want to sign you. Speaking to Noel Gallagher, going up and speak to Mark Coyle,
sound
man, yeah.
I'm saying it.
Who's the boss of this band?
Exactly.
Aye, all that stuff. And you've seen it.
I know.
You witnessed that, right? And then you see the rise. And I often wonder though, right? So Creation Records at that point, Loveless had cost them a lot of money, hadn't it? And Factory Records, Yes Please by Happy Mondays, had cost them a lot of money. They needed a release probably to come back. And they were offered a record deal by Tony. No, they weren't.
They were too baggy.
They got
They
knocked
were
back.
too baggy. Aye.
They got knocked back.
Which is what I kind of thought. To be fair, I thought they were too. Aye, they're too much like the bands we've got. You know
So
what I mean?
could they say
Too much like
factory?
Happy Monk.
I guess is a question.
Aye. Another one was Mother Records, U2's label,
Aye.
because they were
They
were
came in
really
late in the day, didn't
double. They doubled. We'll give you double what McGee's offering. But see, if you look at their advance was really low.
they?
And that was
40K.
and it was a brilliant thing. See, the manager, Marcus Russell, he was at Electronica and all that, in the Bible and bands like that, and what's that name? The Latin Quarter, remember them? Radio Africa, it's probably before your time. They were quite a big band.
They're there. I think you mentioned in the book as well.
All these guys,
Yeah.
and he managed them. And he went to see, he reluctantly went to see them, and then once he saw them, they got it.
Mhm.
And then once he realised that he wasn't sure, and then Noel sort of jumps down the train to see him in London, organises a meeting, begs him, he eventually comes round and does it. But there's a bit in it where you're hoping that they're going to, it's going to come together for them, but they need to play. And I remember saying that to somebody down the stairs. I can't remember who I was speaking to. I think it was Ross, my pal. And I said, they need to play. They remind you, see if you're in bands and you get bands that are really good, but they're too rigid because they're over-rehearsed. You're over-rehearsed, you need to loosen up.
Yeah.
Because you've got to, it's all right rehearsing, you rehearse to get tight, but you need to play on stage to understand, because the lights are on, people are there, it's a different atmosphere, the guy doing the monitors is half asleep and we're doing something else he shouldn't be doing, he's over there, it's all chaos. You don't get that in a rehearsal space, but they were dead rigid and dead regimented. And he recognised straight away that they needed to go and play, so he had them out supporting BMX Bandits, St Etienne, loads of good shows like all over it, but they were on a kind of a decent venue with a decent sound system and getting their actual stagecraft fixed. So all these wee things are happening. Well, we're not between one point and the next point. But I can't believe that we've got to get back together again. You think about it though. Think how it felt as if it was never going to happen.
It did.
Whether you're a fan or not, I mean,
I always thought about it. Oasis and the Roses, I would have loved to have seen the brave bands coming back together, and it's happened. And then you think about
in Stone Roses in the book about how, if you watch that film and getting back together again, but there's a really important, I'm not sure if it's a rumour, but I was talking to somebody last week about it. Apparently, sorry for butting in, apparently there's a clause whenever they're getting paid, they're not getting paid till after they play the show, each show.
Is that right?
Aye.
The Roses, the fractured nature of that Mary Stone documentary that you talk about, you watch it and you think that friendships are probably getting buried during this resurrection. And we had the pleasure of bringing Andrew Innes to a Celtic game against Lazio, and I was chipping him a wee bit. He just says, it's the drummer. And I was like, the drummers are good guys. My brother's a drummer. He goes, no, the drummer, they can't work, they can't record, they can't do any of this kind of stuff. What do you think about a band that comes back together and doesn't record new material? Because I look at that Roses thing and I'm like, right, there's a legacy there, don't touch it. But with Oasis, you think these guys are still very active.
I think Noel would definitely, he would have songs. And I think I mentioned it in the book. I don't know if that's the way you're maybe angling towards. Not that you're an angly sort of person, but there's a bit in the book where I say, if I had a question to ask Noel Gallagher about a reunion press conference, which I didn't know was happening when I wrote this, I said, see if you come up with a classic song and everybody in all the bands and all the different projects you're in, they can't quite get it, you can't do it. The only person in your head that can sing that's Liam. Do you put that in a file marked Songs for Oasis comeback? I would love to have asked him that, you know what I mean? And I think he will have songs like that. And I don't think they'll have the time. I think they mean business, and I think it'll be hits only. No, I don't know. I think it would be funny if they put a couple of new ones on it.
I know.
I think they've got the musicians there now to do it. There's a wee bit in the book where I mentioned that later on, ironically, whenever they were getting it together and able to stay together for a world tour. I just realised that when I was saying that's when I found out about Twitter. How weird's that? And there's a bit in the book where I'm talking about, it was Amy McDonald and my pal, Chris Crozier, come running out. He's going, oh, look, why don't you show me this? And it was Amy McDonald. That was the first time I ever experienced what Twitter was like. It just happened about 18 seconds before. Noel and Liam had a big fight. Guitars get broke and all that. I always remember that. Don't know, was that 2008, 2009? It was at Paris, the gig at Paris.
So that was your introduction to
it was Twitter,
that platform. And again, you've seen the rise, the fall, and the resurrection, of course, of
that was the last
the
chapter
band.
at the end. Quite a big chapter.
Yeah. So were you hanging on for about years and years for this to be published, do you think?
Not, I think I was.
Was it going to come out
It
regardless?
nearly came out. You could say almost 4 times, but definitely 3 times. There was people involved in it, and people interested in it. One guy at there was one company had a big fallout, and then there was it was a huge publisher, which I'm not going to name them, but there was a huge publisher, and they had they get bought over by somebody else, a bigger company, and there was job losses and all that, and the people who liked this book were no longer there, and it was all off, and they decided not to do it, and I thought, that's showbiz, I'm used to it, it's fine. And I put it back. But there was a guy from Virgin Books who I will talk about. He thought it was going to. They were really up for it. And then at the end of the process, they have a meeting. They have a meeting that's like an editorial meeting, and it's usually the salespeople that are there. The salespeople are the most important people, most publishers. People don't know that. The guys that know how to sell it, we're talking about earlier in Waterson's or any bookshop. They go in. They know what works in the shop. They know what people like. And Oasis were always described as we're talking about earlier, Marmite band. So the guys like that. But he said, I'm roughly quoting him, but more or less, to get the gist, keep at this though, because I read this because I'm a fan of Oasis. I really liked it. And it goes, keep updating it, any news, keep going it, because if there's a reunion, everybody will be wanting this, and you have to be ready. And I was. So I listened to people, believe it or not. I know it doesn't sound like it, but I was listening, and I had it ready. I had it. And then I just gave it one big last push, one big edit and fix up. And then I wrote the last one straight as if because I was in Ibiza, an old bit of Ibiza, I think. Then it was the last chapter, and I'd come home, and we couldn't be working out, and we were watching with John Robb and and Mr. Sifters, the record shop, the new up in, and they're talking, and I was like, this is what's going to happen. Then that weekend it did happen.
There was a vibe in that interview.
You could tell he was being nice. Mm-hmm. He was being really nice about. He was talking about Liam being able to sing. Remember now, he was a half pint of ale, and Liam was like 10. All that sort of thing.
Very complimentary in it.
And all, so you knew. I thought this was going to happen. And then after the show, it was like it happened. And then, so it was good to have it ready, but it was also good to, without sounding writery again, it was good to have like a few. About 8 or 9 in the tank to go back and to improve it. Yeah. So it was. It's unusual that the Scottish Football Book, I got a chance to come out in paperback, and I got a chance to go in and update and fix and really improve. But I get the same with that as well. So it was good to sort of space it a wee bit.
There's a few spelling mistakes in my third book I would like to change at some point.
Well, if it's
fell through the cracks.
I just tell you, the Scottish Football Book, the hardback version of it, there's a hardback version out which is green, sort of like a beauty board or something like that. The people, let's just say it was rushed out for Christmas, and the author never got a chance to look at it again. So there was quite a lot of funny mistakes in it. It's probably worth keeping for parties or not, for a laugh. But this one, it was great. It's great to get a chance to get
because you get the blame for that.
I know.
It's my name. Don't know that
my name's in the front.
Exactly.
Paul John.
Yeah.
My name's in the front. I'm the director, producer,
and it gets published with.
I nearly swore that day.
I'm going to ask you as well, when you watch Oasis at King Tut's, when you play drums for Nirvana, Celtic at that point are managed by Liam Brady, right? It's hard, tough times. I mean, this here, you play for drums on stage with Nirvana the night after Celtic draw, nothing each with Hibs, in front of 22,000 with Cascarino centre forward.
It was a low.
Poor times.
Right.
It wasn't getting much better by the time you see Oasis King Tut's, but by the time Supersonic comes out, things are turning, because it's 1994, right? That's obviously the debut single, and the month before that, Fergus is just taking over the club.
Yeah.
And we're starting to climb again. So things are good. It takes a while. There's a transition. It takes a while.
It became the big band member as well. Whenever Henrik and that was there.
That's right. Yeah.
Just there is a kind of a. I never thought of that. Do you think that might affect the sales? Oh no! Honestly, most of the guys that I know that are Oasis fans support our team.
The big thing as well with Paul Gallagher that I found astonishing. It turns out I met him the night before the Stone Roses Heaton Park gig.
Right.
And Beery Eye did a warm-up at Warrington Park Hall.
They did.
And Paul, I think, was DJing.
Aye.
I met him there and I says, I'd love you to be on my podcast. Andy, my podcast didn't exist. Right?
Aye.
It was 2012. First,
Got to think your feet.
absolutely. 2017 was when it finally happened. But he was true to his word and he gave me the interview. And he was talking about coming up here as a punter
Good
in the
guys.
1980s. Absolutely. Jumping on a bus at Manchester, come up to watch Celtic. Yeah, you loved it.
Superb.
You
Aye.
absolutely loved it.
I think guys like that are, I think guys in music and writing and all that, there's a, in comedy that I think, out of the worst, I think out of the three of them, it's probably, in terms of the creative process, I think there's a, even though 100% they're all raging if you've got, if you're, if you get a book deal made of me, or, you know what I mean, there's that thing where you're it, but you expect that, you know, even if a good pal does well, you're like, right? But again, I'm not just trying to sound all saintly and all. I love my pals to do well.
Exactly.
Gary John's on stage at Glastonbury with the Proclaimers and all that. Love it.
Yeah. 100%.
Because you know what they go through. You know what people go through. You know the work they have to do. They know what they have to do in between. People don't understand what the work it goes into. I was saying earlier on about how I said I wouldn't say this. I'm going to say it because I get prolific a lot and I get even on off the ball. Ironically, Tam every time I go on, he's like, aye. We got Andy Bollen here. He's got a Olympic out this week. All right. It's like, and it's funny, right? I know the point of the joke, right? It's funny, but the reason why there's so many books is because I used to put that amount of effort into writing jokes for the radio, and the telly, and newspapers, and sketch shows. Only an Excuse, Watson's Wind Up, Off the Ball, big writing and off the ball all the time, almost like making a living from writing for it, and. You always had this sort of people. I'd miss games. Half the games we say, I was always working.
Yeah,
always working. Saturday and Sunday, you're writing for the papers. Then you've got some. Then there's like all these different news stories come up, all these different things happen, and I couldn't miss out on things, and I was always noting up stuff and writing jokes. Aye, so.
and the difference now is that they're being compiled in these brilliant books. I've got to say, this one here, I grabbed it on Amazon because I needed it quick so I could read it.
No, that's
before I met
fine.
you.
Nothing wrong with Amazon.
Who's the best place to get this for you?
Well, I would say it doesn't matter to me. I'll get my 17 pence. I don't do it for the money. I genuinely don't. I still work. But I would say anywhere but Amazon, really.
Sorry, Andy.
No, I'll just say that to wind you up. I think that I don't care where anybody buys it. I mean, if it was up to me, I would give it away for a £5 at the day. You know, but I'm a bit old school. But the point, people ask that quite a lot. And I think if you go into your shops, I think Portobello Books and just people are just smaller indies that you can help. I think book publishing, a shop. You go to the shops is what I'm trying to say.
What I loved about it, I've got to say, the story's incredible anyway, and I try and read all the Oasis books that come out and have been out.
Well, what do you think of that one then?
I love the focus on that one night at Tuts.
Aye.
I loved it.
So I did that with it. I've got a book about Johan Cruyff. I saw him play at Celtic Park, but that season he played at Feyenoord. No, not a lot of people knew it, and that was like what I did. Same idea. I just thought I'm going to do the same as I did with the Cruyff, but I'm going to have that as a focal point. Always come back to that, so you can talk about a career, talk about this happened out in America, they screwed up, and then they back up when they're all fighting and their pals are down the stairs and my gays try to stop it, and then you talk about it. And then there's one chapter in it where I get as many people who I knew were there what they thought happened, and it is quite funny because and then there's like one person who I'm not going to name because I don't want to embarrass them, but a person who was speaking to a family member had said that she left her job early that day. She just started a new job. She left her job early to go up to get into Glasgow to see Oasis that night in King Tut's. I'm like, that's amazing, because
They knew.
I don't think Oasis knew they were even there, right? I was like, it wouldn't be quite popular stories with people. So it's incredible to be part of something that's such a huge cultural story, but people still get it wrong.
Yeah, it definitely.
If people, the biggest bed bug is bugbear is. Red bugs are funny. I think a bugbear's funny. Is people saying that they get a record deal that night. They never get a record deal. That annoys me.
One last question is the figures. You go into some of the figures who are so important, who are maybe background figures, and when you're talking about, for example, Mark Coyle being a sound man of an unsigned band, very unusual coming up, and having that luxury. But there's two people I want to ask you about. The first one is Johnny Marr. I always
Johnny,
found that interesting how,
it was his brother at
Yeah.
first, aye.
was it Ian?
Ian.
His wee brother, and he got this live
You need to listen to this,
demonstration.
you need to listen to this, you need
Yeah.
to listen to this. Eventually listen to it.
And,
But it's funny, on the night as well, McGee was well, I want to sing you, let's do it. And he's like, he didn't know who he was. I don't think, people know this lovely sort of smile. I always say it to you, this sort of a warmth.
Yeah.
To him. He was like, he calmed down. He was obviously on sort of something else. He was just sober and happy. He was happy, and he was going, "Oh no, take a demo." He kept saying, "I don't need a demo. I saw you live. I don't need to hear a demo. I can." He was for me. I was going to move there. I'm in a spot, so he was very close to him, and I was standing at the mixing desk at this point, and we're at the stairs, just at the stairs at King Tut. As you come down, right about a yard and a half from me, and Noel's going, no, calm down. He's telling him to calm down. Aye, but it was amazing. It was amazing to think that. But that was all down to, you're talking about Johnny Marr, but I think this other person, just Debbie, you're going to talk about.
I was going to mention the Griffiths brothers. The real people.
Right.
You mentioned
They were-
Columbia and
Well, they were They were a bit. I think they quite right to be a bit miffed about being not edged out the story a bit, but I think that. Well, the stuff that came out was the original stuff. All the demos that they were doing, but that was all their work. But when it got to the actual recording, definitely maybe it was just a morass. It was just like an absolute disaster area, and they were just allowed. It was like they were allowed to go into the studio, and Noel was obviously overdoing it, but it got fixed. Owen, what's his name? Owen Morris came in and a clear eye to sort of get rid of all the stuff, took it back, and saved the day. And just as well, because they were crapping it. I think they were in. I mean, they're advanced. We were talking about earlier, 44,000, 43,000 or something. But the cost in these studios, it was ridiculous, and they just had to say, "No, we'll make pull it and salvage what we've got." That's what it should be called. The album was just the album they created. Oh, he deserves a medal for it, doesn't he?
absolutely, I know. And I remember some of the high points of listening to that cassette that I had at the time, Slide Away. It's unbelievable.
Hi-hat and the snare drum. It's like
I'm going to bring this right back to Brian McClare.
a chalky.
So Chalky, who was part of your alumni, I believe.
He was his alumni. Is that the same school or is it the same year? I thought it was the same year.
Is it?
No, I think alumni is like if they're in your year, but I'm not going to argue. I think no, he was with
He's your brother's alumni.
The big brothers. He's my big brother's alumni.
There we go.
Was at school with him. He was a brainy. Well, he was brainy. He was. I think he was at uni as well with Brian.
He's two. Your brother was brainy.
Stephen was really brainy. Aye,
Chalky's a brainy boy.
Aye, he was good.
Clever.
Stephen was clever as well.
Hopefully he's tuning in. But there's a story
Peter, my
about
big brother was a headmaster, and the other one was a teacher as well. So they were all.
Right.
My big sister was sort of. She was quite successful as well. Like I know.
What I love about Brian
Is me.
music, football,
Aye.
politics, and he's a funny guy, and a lot of
Very
the time
dry.
you assume go
Very
over
dry.
your head. It's good. But he has one of the live demonstration tapes because Liam used to wash his car
Aye.
at Old Trafford.
Wow.
So Liam, what was the guy's name? Big Un. He ran a company that
that's
washed
the-
cars,
aye.
right? And Liam used
That's
to
the
do
guy who allegedly was involved in the fight. I couldn't get him to.
Was he?
Aye, he was the one that was up with them. That was
The aggro.
am I going to get my house burned down? He was the one that was the
Oh, I
bad
didn't
boy.
know
He was the one that was the fighter. That was. I think he's Liam's pal.
right.
And he was up by. He was the guy that was allegedly. But that was all kind of. I think creation made that up for. It was great because it stuck. It stuck, and the image was created. And that was the point. That's PR, isn't it? So I didn't know that, aye. Because he's a City fan. They're big City fans as well.
Yeah. So he used to wash the cars, and he gave Brian McClare a demo. I still got it. Chalky's still got it.
Wow.
You know, he's a kid. We done this gig with him one time. He goes, he used to make tapes up
Aye,
for the Walkman for the away games and stuff, and he would give John Colquhoun them, and they would swap tape, and he still had them.
I was
Andy.
with him, aye.
He still had the compilation tapes.
Do you not keep your tapes?
Oh, they're long gone.
Are you maybe too young for
They're
tapes?
long gone. I was more CD generation.
Aye, I used to see tapes were good if you fancied a lassie at school and all that. Or
Make the wee mix
make a wee mixtape.
and hope they'll tune into the lyrics. Fantastic. Listen, Andy, this has been really enjoyable. Thanks so much for
Thanks
giving
for
us
having me on, and
an hour of your time.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks very much for joining
Thank you,
us.
pal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us once again on A Celtic State of Mind. Join us next Friday at 6 o'clock for This is Acsom.